Good morning, everybody. Happy chilly Tuesday. I hope everybody's staying warm and staying safe out there. Welcome to another episode of Tuesday's Care Talk. My name is Ashlyn, and today I'm going to be covering what Tara talked about last Thursday, which is flow, or learning to recognize your flow, learning to increase your flow, and how that flow kind of fits into the bigger picture, right? So I'm not gonna lie, when I was watching the video, it was a little bit difficult kind of to understand, right? What is flow? What does all this mean? How does this affect my life as a whole, right? So cool things that I was able to kind of break down here. One of the first kind of things that she talked about, Tara, in her videos about flow was figuring out a way to keep that challenge, keep that interest alive, right? So how do you, if you've hit a rut, if you've hit a point where you're just kind of low, you're bored, you're not sure where to go from here, what to do, maybe you mastered your hobby as much as you want, or you've hit a roadblock, and so finding flow is about how do we prevent ourselves from getting bored? How do we prevent ourselves from feeling kind of that boredom and that fatigue? And also, if we do feel that boredom and that fatigue, where do we go from there? Right? So some of the kind of main points that Tara mentioned was challenge yourself, build on your skills, and understand the difference between tasks and processes, and then develop a routine. So I'm kind of going to go and use my example here for you guys, and hopefully it resonates with you. So one of the first things is she mentions challenging yourself, right? So what does that mean? Well, part of that is I hope you guys were able to participate in that self-assessment that she kind of asked you guys to do. And that just really helps to help you look at yourself. So what do I mean by that, right? So are you a tactile person? Are you a sensory person? Are you someone who likes group activities, or do you like individual activities? Figuring out what type of style, what type of person you are, what type of challenges that you like will help you pick out that challenge or that hobby to just kind of help better yourself. So, for example, take myself. I played the violin for 6 years, I think. And I stopped playing in high school because it was all about going to music school, and I just wanted to play for fun. And so I kind of dropped out of music. And ever since, I love music. I love to whistle. I can keep a beat. I enjoy humming. Music has always been a part of my life. Well, since COVID happened, I kind of hit a rut, right? I kind of feel like we all kind of have hit a bit of a rut. Can't go out as much as we used to. Maybe we can't go out and play sports with a whole bunch of people like we did, or we can't go out to the bar and celebrate with our friends. I've got a friend who he watches music. He has a couple friends that do music, live concerts at Barleycorns, and he hasn't been able to go for a while because can't go out, have a bunch of crowds. The music's usually high energy, so people are dancing and, having fun. And so what do you do when you hit that point where it's like COVID happened, you're stuck at home, nothing to do? Well, there's always something. Believe it or not, if you need help finding it, Google it. There's always something to do. So my mom, I was telling her that I was really feeling like I was in a rut and wanted to get back into music, but I didn't know what to do. And I wanted something simple because it had been played it for 6 years, but it had also been 6 years since I played the violin. And so I was like, oh man, I'm going to sound terrible. And my mom says, what about a ukulele? So here we go. Got my ukulele. And so I decided to take this on as a way to challenge myself. It's small, it's easy. Yes, it did cost some money, and I understand that not everybody, especially being college students, we're not all made of money, right? But sometimes if you have a challenge, like let's say wanting to build a computer or play an instrument, check out Amazon, check out stuff online. I know it might sound crazy, but it's booming right now. And you can find a lot of really cool, like those little hand heart picks. We looked at those. Ukulele, of course. You can actually get pretty decent keyboards, lots of different instruments, different puzzles, all types of different things that you can find online. And maybe you save up for it and you give it a try. So for me, it was the ukulele. So I got this ukulele, and trust me, I'm not the best at it. I'm still trying to learn how to strum correctly. I've got a couple chords, you know. I can do the scale. But for me, you know, I was like, this is what I'm going to do to try to challenge myself and get myself out of boredom. Now, if you're like thinking about this, going, man, Ashlyn, I'm not just going to sit there and practice for hours and hours and hours on something. Don't worry about it. 10 minutes. What I like to do, and this is also a helpful hint from Ashlyn, set your timer. So for me, I try to practice 10 minutes every day. That's it, just 10 minutes. Sometimes it's just me going. You know, like I'm not even necessarily looking at a book. I'm just playing. I'm just having fun. I'm just trying to get my fingers used to it, right? And so set your timer for 10 minutes. So for example, if you're worried about homework and figuring out how maybe some of these little things, these tasks fit into your larger, bigger picture, bigger process of your life, take 10 minutes. That's what I do, 10 minutes or an hour. Set your timer for an hour and say, I'm gonna do the best I can and clean this kitchen for 1 hour. And then when you're done with that for an hour, you're done with it. Give yourself a break. Or you're gonna do homework, right? I'm gonna do homework for an hour. If you're really anxious about it, you've got a test coming up, you're not really sure what to do, I'm gonna study for an hour. Just do that, you know, just kind of break it down into those smaller sections, okay? So next, I got this to challenge myself, right? Number one thing. But man, where are you gonna go from here, right? You can only challenge yourself so much until you get to that point where your skills are at that same level as you were at, or you're like, man, I really know this, I'm doing better. So now you've got to build your skill. So what that means is, how can you maybe dive deeper into that challenge, into that hobby, into that creative process? Or how can you build your skill to a different set? Like if, let's say, you've got your analytical skills down, you know, like really well, right? Your analytical skills are super good. Well, maybe you've got another skill that's lacking. And so you say, okay, my challenge is, how do I develop that other skill? How do I develop my vocabulary skill instead of analytics, right? And so maybe you try to read more, or you try to use sentences and use those bigger words, right? So look at how you can build that skill. So for me, I got a few chords down, right? I can do some picking, but there's something that I learned, you know, I'm trying to practice my strumming, whether that's strumming with my hand, trying to strum with my drum or my thumb, doing it with a pick, trying to figure out which method works best for me. And then I'm going to take that method, like this one, hold it kind of similar to a pick, and I take this, and I've been like, okay, so this is the skill I'm going to try to practice, right? But I'm working on it. So I picked the one skill that I want to try to really build up, right? So I practice that. I Google music for strumming. I Google how to strum with your thumb. YouTube videos, huge. If you're ever stuck and you want to learn a skill or get better at a skill, YouTube videos. They've got, I mean, anything and everything there for you. And also, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are some skills, there are some things where you can get so far on your own and then you kind of hit a plateau, right? Nothing against you, nothing bad, just means you need a little extra help or different perspective, right? So some of these things with flow go back to our growth mindset. They go back to our circle of control, right? Remembering that we're not perfect at everything and there's no way that we should be expected to be. So ask for help. Keep trying. face that challenge and see it as a learning and a growing opportunity to increase your flow, to increase your creativity and your fun, and just to learn something new. And so trying to look at those challenges and those skills as a bigger picture, kind of like what Tara was talking about with the process, look at it as a bigger picture. How do all of these different challenges, skills, work that you're doing, how does all of that shape up and make you you? How do all these things shape up together and make your life what it is, right? So if you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, I've got all these things and I'm kind of scattered and I've got these lists and things, take a break. It's a lot of stuff. You got a lot of stuff on your plate. I believe it. College students, you guys have COVID, jobs, family, social relations, your academics, right? Your future. Where are you going to go from here? It's okay not to know. Sometimes we got to take a break. Sometimes you can't always look at the bigger picture right away. So take small baby steps and say, okay, how can so if I want to get into baking, but I'm super busy and and being busy and overwhelmed makes me anxious, maybe you make that short to-do list and you relate it to the bigger whole, right? So your goal is to, let's say you want to get into baking. So you say, okay, in order for me to get into baking, I need to build on my study skills and my work ethic, right? You've got to take some of that initiative, that responsibility to do that. So you say, I'm going to set my timer for an hour and I'm going to study or do as much homework as I can in an hour. And then when an hour is done, you say, okay, my hour is done. I am now going to pick a bread recipe, right? And you're going to make bread. And anybody who does baking or works with bread, sometimes you have to wait 30 minutes, an hour, 45 minutes, for your dough or whatever to rise. So then you can take that time and say, okay, what can I do between that time? Pick up your ukulele, pick up your puzzle, your Sudoku, paint, build that computer, look up YouTube videos and watch, I don't know, how they build a computer or people doing math, whatever it is that your skill or your hobby or your interest is. Take that time to do it and to try it. And once you really kind of are able to take your tasks and fit them into your process, your bigger picture of life, then the next step is kind of figuring out that routine, right? A routine, as crazy as it sounds, and as much as people want to say, I don't want structure, I don't need structure, we all like a little bit of structure, trust me. And so having a routine that you have with your daily life, right? Everyone's got a work routine, a relaxing routine, a taking care of the dog routine, a friend routine, right? We have all these different routines that we're a part of that make up our life that go into this process, right? So once you kind of find some time to build your skills, work on your challenge, now it's time to say, okay, how can I make this into a routine? And part of that comes from practice, part of that comes from repetition, right? Again, set your timer. And maybe part of your routine is throughout the day, you set your timer for an hour, you do whatever it is that you have to get done for an hour, and then you don't worry about it, and you do something else for an hour, or do something else for 30 minutes. That way it helps you keep coming back. That way you're not studying, because that's what my issue was. When I was in school, I would study and be like, I've got to study for this test, and I've got to study all day long, right? For some people, studying all day long is a great fix, and that's great for them. For me, I didn't retain anything. I felt more anxious. I felt like I didn't get to do anything with my day, right? And so I was like, no, I'm going to set my timer for an hour in the morning, an hour or so at noon, and then another hour or so at night. So I was studying for about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours, depending on how my day was. And then the other things I did was I practiced my self-care. I read a book. I picked up a skill. I practiced something, right? So when you're thinking of your routine and your bigger process, try really hard to think a little outside the box and to take some risks and some challenges with that. Part of that is going to come from that self-assessment. So make sure to complete that. Again, look at yourself, right? What do you like? What do you not like? Are you a group person? Are you individual? What's your learning style? Sensory, reading, writing, tactile, right? So for me, I'm a very tactile person. So when I was in a rut, when I was looking for something, I had colors and I enjoyed coloring, but I was kind of just feeling like, man, I've got all these complicated adult coloring books, right? I've got all these colors. I just wanted something more. And so me being a hands-on, being a tactile person, the ukulele was perfect for me, right? So if you're a group person, so yeah, you may not be able to go to group concerts as much, but if you social physically distance, I like to say, because you're still being social, if you say physically distance, you wear masks, there's no reason why you and a few friends can't get together, 5 or under people get together, maybe you play music, or you listen to music, or you take a walk outside, or instead of going inside into a concert, sometimes around Wichita, maybe not so much when it's colder, but there are people that play outside, play music outside, or do something like mini golf outside, or maybe instead of having a full soccer team with everybody in crowds, just a few of your friends play. So there are still ways to get out, to be physical, to be with people during this time safely. And so there is something out there for everybody. It's just about finding that challenge that's right for you, taking that risk to pick it up or to buy it or whatever it is, and then say to yourself, okay, as one of my challenges, I need to make sure that I really try to do this. I try to stick with it. 10 minutes of practicing every day. Set your timer for an hour. Pay attention and build on those skills. If you get to a point where you're like, man, all right, I know these, add another chord. Don't look at your fingers. When I first started, I was like, okay. I'd look at my hand, right? So that I knew where they were. And I'm still learning. These are definitely different frets than a violin, but I'm slowly getting better at doing it without looking. So even those building your skills can be something as simple as that, right? And then again, next thing, pay attention to those tasks versus processes. Now, there's nothing wrong with keeping tasks. Like Tara's a list person, I'm a list person. Nothing more satisfying than checking it off or scratching through it, right? The key is how do we make some of those small things into our bigger picture, right? So how do we have the self-discipline, the responsibility, the challenge, the resilience to keep going and to say, okay, in order for me to do this, in order for me to be able to play my ukulele all night or see my friends or play video games, whatever it is, I've got to do a little something. And so maybe that something is studying. Maybe that something is practicing your skill. Maybe that something is doing some self-care, right? So how can those tasks apply to the bigger process? Instead of just saying, all right, I've got these things done I needed to do to clean the kitchen, right? I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Well, but as a whole, yeah, you're just cleaning the kitchen, but as a whole, you're taking care of yourself. You're taking care of your living space. You're treating yourself on your living space with respect, right? And so even some of those things that we think are mundane, everyday chores, they all fit into a larger process. Because trust me, if your process is off, if you're not cleaning your kitchen very well, right, and your dishes start to pile up, it's going to cause anxiety. It might cause some stress, might cause fatigue, might cause you to feel overwhelmed. So even some of those little tasks, they do fit into our bigger process. And so look at that bigger picture and say, how is all this working for me in my life? How is all this helping to keep my head on? How is all this helping to lower my stress? Or do you have things in your life that are increasing your stress? And if so, what are some things we can do to alleviate that, right? So that's kind of where that sense of strength, resiliency, challenge, building those skills, all that add up to kind of that bigger picture for you. So challenge, do that assessment. What type of person are you? Group, individual, tactile, sensory, reading, writing. What is it? What are your skills? What are your hobbies? What do you enjoy? What do you dislike? Really dig deep into discovering yourself. Then pick a challenge. Pick something either new that you wanted to try and never have, or maybe you want to say, okay, no, I really enjoy, I don't know. Here's one, video games. I really enjoy video games. I'm a gamer myself, PlayStation all the way. You really enjoy video games, right? And you're like, well, I don't really want to pick up another game. I really like this one. So play it on super hard, right? Play it on that hard mode. Challenge yourself. Build that skill, right? Or if you're like, man, I really like technology. I really don't see myself doing art or anything like that. All right, so challenge yourself. You know, what would it be like to build a PC? Or how would it be like to take apart a remote control and put it back together, right? Or what's the smallest type of thing that you can create using stuff around your house, right? You can build upon those pre-existing skills or that pre-existing challenge if you find yourself not really wanting to pick something brand new. And then again, develop that routine that works for you. It might sound weird, but I tell you what, it's so nice waking up at clockwork and usually going to bed on time. It's so nice having myself have time set aside for self-care, for having fun, for doing homework, for doing work. All that builds into my routine and it keeps me stable. So that way when something shakes the boat, when something rocks it, one, I'm aware of it sooner and I go, ooh, something's not right, because I can tell my routine is off, right? And two, it gives you something, so it's like, okay, even if your routine might be a little bit off, like let's say buying a tire. Tires are expensive, not the easiest thing. Usually when it rains, it pours, right? And so even though that might be a really hard challenge that you're facing, remember, that doesn't mean that your routine has to completely go out of whack. Sometimes it's nice because that routine gives you something to fall back on or to say, okay, I'm really struggling right now, but I know if I do some of these little things, my routine and everything will be back on track. That's what they're there for. That's that strength, that resiliency, that determination, and that self-discipline. And it's hard. It's not easy. I have days where I'm on top of it in my routine and I'm like, yeah, on top of the world, Wonder Woman over here. And then I have other days where I'm just like, I don't practice. I don't clean my kitchen. And those are days that I can tell that I'm off, right? My routine's off. I'm not feeling it. And something needs to happen. And part of that can just be giving yourself a kick in the butt, right? Sometimes I go, I really am tired. I really don't want to play, but I'm going to. And so I pick up my ukulele and I'm doing this. Or, let me see. So. And next thing I know, that smile that's kind of coming as I was playing, I'm smiling. And it put me in a good mood. So even when you're not always feeling your best or feeling like you want that challenge, feeling like you want to do that thing, and so maybe you don't start with the homework first. Maybe you start with something fun. And you'd be surprised how much that even just playing around on something makes you go, wasn't as bad. It was pretty good. It was pretty good, right? So think about that. Take that chance. Don't give up. Always keep trying. Develop a routine that works for you. Set your timer for a little bit. Give yourself a little, 30 minutes here, 10 minutes here, an hour there, regardless what it is. Cleaning, homework, self-care, reading a book, taking a nap. Set yourself a timer for something. That's what I do. And also, nothing wrong with the list, nothing wrong with the task, but see how that task, how that to-do, how those steps, how does that affect your bigger picture, right? How important is it? Why is it important to make sure that you're cleaning your kitchen and your room? Why is it important that you make sure that you're doing 30 minutes of self-care every day, right? Listen to those things, listen to yourself, know yourself. Focus on your circle of control, right? What you can control, what you can influence, and then things that are out of your control. Sorry, my dog decided to come on up here. And then also, give yourself some grace. Life is all about learning and growing, and we all go about it at different speeds. Some of us by ourselves, some of us with the help of others. never stop growing and never be afraid to ask for help. That's what life is about. That's what it's all about. So challenge yourself, build on your skill, develop a routine, and see how that applies to the bigger picture. If you haven't already, make sure that you check out the YouTube videos, and I believe it is maybe an article as well, that are going to be in your extras folder, for your assignments on Blackboard, for your Shocker Strong. Check those out. Watch them. See where that takes you, and really try to think of that for yourself, because trust me, once you figure it out, once you kind of figure that self-resilience part of you out, a lot of stuff just comes so much easier. Plus, you might surprise yourself and find something new that you enjoy. So, have fun, enjoy yourselves. Try increasing your flow. Focus on your flow. And we'll see you next Tuesday. Don't forget, this episode is coming up this Thursday. So can't think of the name of this episode, but don't forget to check it out. And we'll have more from Tara later this week. Bye, you guys. Thanks for sticking around.